In the celestial city of Aetheris, where shimmering towers of crystal scraped the heavens, the atmosphere crackled with tension. The grand hall of the Arcane League was filled to capacity. Mages from across the galaxy gathered to witness the trial of the Warlocks. Among them stood Mila-Fi, their leader, a tall figure cloaked in deep purple robes, his silver hair flowing like starlight. Beside him were his fellow Warlocks: Alina, the fierce and determined spellcaster; Thorn, the brooding elemental; and Lyra, the quick-witted trickster. The chamber was dominated by the High Counselors, their ornate thrones elevated above the crowd, each adorned with arcane symbols that glowed ominously. Counselor Vex, an imposing figure with piercing blue eyes, presided over the proceedings. He pointed a gnarled finger at Mila-Fi, his voice echoing through the hall. "You stand accused of practicing forbidden magic, of dabbling in the dark arts that threaten the very fabric of our society. What do you have to say for yourselves?" Mila-Fi's heart raced, but he held his ground. "We have sought knowledge to protect our realms, not to harm them. Our research into the ancient texts is driven by a desire to understand and prepare for threats that could annihilate us all." A ripple of murmurs ran through the assembly, but Vex's expression remained impassive. "Your methods are reckless. You disregard the principles of the League, and for that, you must be punished." As the council debated, Alina's gaze wandered to the back of the hall. There, a figure cloaked in shadows lingered. She squinted, sensing a strange energy surrounding the figure, a feeling that suggested both danger and urgency. Just as she tried to focus on the figure, her attention was drawn back to Mila-Fi, who was defending their work with fervor. "Knowledge is not a crime," Mila-Fi shouted, his voice rising above the council's chatter. "We have uncovered a prophecy, a warning of a great darkness that approaches. You dismiss our findings at your peril." At that moment, the figure stepped forward, revealing a face obscured by a hood. The crowd fell silent, curiosity and fear mingling in the air. The cloaked figure raised a hand, emanating an aura that made the counselors recoil. "Listen, Arcane League. The Warlocks speak the truth. A great danger looms, a cosmic entity that consumes worlds. You dismiss them now, but you will regret it when it arrives." Gasps erupted in the hall. Vex, regaining his composure, glared at the figure. "Who dares to interrupt this council? You are nothing but a shadow, a harbinger of chaos." Before the figure could respond, a guard lunged, attempting to seize them. In an instant, the figure vanished in a swirl of dark energy, leaving only a lingering sense of foreboding. Vex, now visibly shaken, turned his ire back to the Warlocks. "Enough of this. The Council has spoken. You are hereby expelled from the Arcane League, stripped of your titles and privileges. Your knowledge is now deemed forbidden." Mila-Fi felt the weight of betrayal settle heavily on his shoulders as the decision echoed through the hall. Whispers spread like wildfire among the gathered mages, many unsure whether to applaud the council or support the Warlocks. As the guards approached, ready to escort them out, he caught Alina's eye. Her expression was fierce, determined. "Together," she whispered, resolute, "we'll prove them wrong." As they were led away, Mila-Fi couldn't shake the feeling that the warning they had heard was not just a warning. It was a harbinger of the trials that lay ahead. A sense of urgency gripped him. The League had cast them out, but they would not be dismissed so easily. The true battle for their legacy, and perhaps the fate of the galaxy, was just beginning. The air on Zarak was thick with the scent of sulfur and ash, the sky a turbulent swirl of dark clouds illuminated by the occasional flash of lightning. The Warlocks had established their hidden enclave within the jagged cliffs of this forsaken planet, a place long forgotten by the rest of the galaxy. Mila-Fi stood at the edge of a rocky precipice, gazing out over the desolate landscape, his heart heavy with the weight of their expulsion. "Here we are," Alina said, her voice tinged with determination as she approached, cast aside and alone. "But we still have each other, and our knowledge. We must complete the ritual, Thorn added, his elemental powers flickering around him like a dormant storm. If the prophecy is true, we may be the galaxy's only hope. As they gathered in the dimly lit chamber of their enclave, the flickering candles cast shadows that danced on the walls, echoing their unease. Lyra pulled out the ancient texts they had managed to salvage before their dismissal, her eyes sparkling with mischief and curiosity. Let's get to work. This ritual could be our ticket back into the League, or our salvation. Malachar took a deep breath, steadying himself. We need to uncover the true nature of this darkness first. The prophecy spoke of a devourer, an entity that consumes not just worlds, but the very essence of magic itself. If we don't understand it, we won't know how to stop it. As they delved into the texts, the atmosphere in the chamber shifted. Strange symbols glowed with an eerie light as they translated passages, revealing not just the history of the devourer, but also the potential of their own abilities. Each warlock felt a surge of power within them, a connection to the ancient magic that flowed through the very fabric of the universe. Hours turned into days as they worked tirelessly, experimenting with rituals and incantations, their bonds strengthening as they faced challenges together. During this time, Alina found herself exploring her family's legacy. She discovered that her ancestors had once been guardians of ancient knowledge, protectors against dark forces. This revelation ignited a fire within her, propelling her to dig deeper into her lineage. One night, as the Warlocks gathered around a flickering fire, she shared her findings. We have the power to control magic in ways the League never acknowledge. We're not just Warlocks. We're the inheritors of a legacy meant to protect the cosmos. Malachar nodded, inspired by her resolve. Then we must harness that legacy. But first, we need to prepare for what's coming. If the League learns of our progress, they will come for us, and we must be ready to defend ourselves. Suddenly, a loud crash reverberated through the enclave, shaking the very ground beneath them. The heavy stone doors burst open, revealing a squad of mercenaries, armed and menacing. Leading them was a familiar face, a former ally-turned-traitor, Ryland, who had once fought alongside the Warlocks in their quest for knowledge. I thought I'd find you here, Ryland sneered, his eyes cold. The League sent me to finish what they started. You're not getting away this time. Malachar stepped forward, his hands crackling with energy. You won't take us without a fight, Ryland. Alina raised her arms, readying a spell, while Thorn summoned the elements around him, ready to unleash their full power. The room buzzed with anticipation as the mercenaries advanced, a clash of old allies about to turn into a fierce battle. Remember, Malachar said, his voice steady, we fight not just for ourselves, but for the future of magic itself. And with that, the Warlocks prepared to defend their sanctuary, their determination ignited by the threat before them. The storm outside raged on, but within, the true tempest of magic was about to unfold. The mercenaries surged forward, their weapons glinting ominously in the dim light of the enclave. Malachar raised his hands, channeling the ancient energies they had been studying. Beside him, Alina and Thorn mirrored his stance, ready to unleash their combined magic. The air crackled with tension as the two sides faced off, a clash of ideals and ambitions brewing in the heart of the hidden chamber. Stand down, Ryland, Malachar shouted, his voice steady despite the chaos. You don't have to do this. Ryland's smirk faded, replaced by a hard resolve. The League gave me a choice. Bring you in or eliminate you. I choose the latter. You've betrayed everything we stood for. Alina's heart ached at the betrayal of her once trusted ally. We haven't betrayed anyone. We're fighting against the darkness that the League refuses to see. With a guttural roar, Thorn unleashed a wave of elemental energy, sending a torrent of wind toward the mercenaries. They staggered but quickly regrouped, launching spells of their own. The chamber erupted into a cacophony of magic and chaos, spells flying in all directions, illuminating the dark space with brilliant flashes of color. Malachar and Alina fought side by side, their magic weaving together seamlessly. As they pushed back against the mercenaries, the memories of their past, the camaraderie forged in battle, the late-night discussions about magic flooded their minds. They were not just fighting for survival, they were fighting for their shared history. But amidst the battle, Malakar's attention was drawn to Ryland. His former friend fought with a desperation that struck a chord within him. "You don't have to do this, Ryland. We can still turn this around." For a brief moment, hesitation flickered in Ryland's eyes. But the moment passed quickly, his resolve hardening again. "You think you can save the galaxy? You're nothing but outcasts. The League will never accept you back." Just as Ryland prepared to launch another attack, Alina interjected, conjuring a shimmering barrier that deflected his spell. "You're wrong. We're not just outcasts. We're powerful in ways the League can't even begin to understand." As they battled, Lyra used her agility to outmaneuver the mercenaries, darting between them with uncanny speed. "Hey, big guy, catch!" she shouted, tossing a handful of enchanted dust into the air. The dust shimmered, momentarily blinding their opponents and creating a brief opening for the Warlocks to counterattack. Seizing the moment, Malakar conjured a swirling vortex of energy, focusing it toward Ryland. "This isn't about betrayal, it's about understanding. You were with us in the search for knowledge, remember?" Ryland staggered under the force of the spell, but still held his ground. "Knowledge? You've perverted it. This isn't the way." But as the fight wore on, the tide began to turn. The Warlocks worked in unison, their trust in one another solidifying under pressure. With every spell they cast, they pushed back against the mercenaries, their determination fueled by the belief that they were the galaxy's last hope against the Devourer. Finally, amidst the fray, Malakar found his voice once more, louder and more commanding than ever. "We are not alone. We have each other, and we have the power to shape our destiny." With renewed vigor, the Warlocks unleashed a combined spell, a brilliant explosion of light that enveloped the room. The mercenaries faltered, their resolve breaking as the magic surged over them. In the wake of the attack, Ryland fell to one knee, his expression shifting from anger to confusion. "Don't you see?" Alina shouted, stepping forward. "The League is blind. The darkness is coming, and we need to unite, not fight." As the dust settled, Ryland looked up at them, his breath ragged. The flicker of doubt in his eyes grew brighter, but the sounds of reinforcements from the League echoed in the distance. They were running out of time. "Join us, Ryland," Malakar urged, extending a hand. "Help us finish what we started. The galaxy needs us, all of us." In that charged moment, with the future hanging in the balance, Ryland faced a choice that could alter the course of their destinies forever. The sounds of chaos faded as Ryland looked up, torn between loyalty to the League and the undeniable bond he had once shared with the Warlocks. The air crackled with tension, the weight of their collective magic hanging in the atmosphere. Malakar's outstretched hand beckoned not just for Ryland's help, but for a chance at redemption. "Join us, Ryland," Alina urged, her voice steady despite the turmoil. "Together, we can stop the Devourer. The League's complacency will be our downfall." For a heartbeat, Ryland hesitated, his brow furrowing as he wrestled with his internal conflict. Just then, the echo of marching boots grew louder outside their enclave. The League's reinforcements were closing in, and their time was slipping away. "Make your choice," Malakar insisted, urgency lacing his words. "We either fight together or watch the galaxy burn." The shadows of the past and the uncertainty of the future loomed over Ryland, but with a grimace he rose to his feet. "Fine. I'll fight with you, this once. But if you cross any lines, I won't hesitate to stop you." "Fair enough," Malakar replied, relief flooding through him. They had gained an ally, but now they needed a plan. As the Warlocks quickly regrouped, they began discussing their next steps. "The League has underestimated us," Thorn said, his elemental energies still swirling around him. "They believe we're merely a group of outcasts. But we know the truth, the Devourer is rising, and it won't stop at the borders of our realms. Lyra spread out the ancient texts on a makeshift table, her fingers brushing over the delicate pages. These prophecies speak of a ritual, one that can bind the devourer and harness its power against our enemies. We need to find the remaining components, and fast. Alina leaned closer to the texts, her heart racing as she traced the symbols with her finger. One of the components is a heartstone, said to be hidden in the caverns of Voss. It's a dangerous place, filled with traps and ancient guardians, but if we can retrieve it, we can complete the ritual. Then we have no time to waste, Malachar said, determination igniting within him. We need to leave before the League's reinforcements arrive. As they prepared to move, a sudden tremor shook the ground beneath them. The entire enclave shuddered, dust and debris falling from the ceiling. The Warlocks exchanged worried glances. What was that? Ryland asked, a flicker of fear crossing his face. An omen, Thorn replied, his voice low. The devourer is stirring. We need to hurry. Gathering their belongings and preparing their spells, the Warlocks dashed toward the exit, their hearts pounding in sync with the impending threat. They navigated through the twisted paths of Zorak, the darkened landscape reflecting their urgency. As they neared the caverns of Voss, the air grew thick with an unnatural energy, a warning of the danger that awaited them. The entrance loomed ahead, an ominous maw in the cliffside, illuminated by a ghostly light that pulsed like a heartbeat. We need to be careful, Alina cautioned, peering into the dark void. Legends speak of illusions that prey on fears and insecurities. We'll have to rely on each other more than ever. As they entered the cavern, the atmosphere shifted. The walls glimmered with bioluminescent fungi, casting eerie shadows that danced along the rocky surfaces. Whispers echoed throughout the cavern, laced with ancient magic. Stay close, Malachar instructed, his voice firm. Trust in one another, and we'll find a heartstone. The deeper they ventured, the more the air crackled with tension. They soon encountered the first of the guardians, an enormous stone golem, its eyes glowing with an inner fire. It stepped forward, blocking their path, its voice booming through the cavern. Only those worthy may pass. Speak your purpose. Malachar stepped forward, drawing on the power of his words. We seek the Heartstone to bind the devourer and save our galaxy from destruction. We are united in our quest, not as outcasts, but as protectors. The golem paused, its glowing eyes narrowing as it assessed their sincerity. In that moment, the Warlocks felt their hearts beat as one, a collective resolve igniting the air around them. The Guardian hesitated, as if weighing their words against the gravity of their mission. Prove your worth, the golem declared. Face your fears, and only then shall you pass. With those words, the cavern trembled again, and shadows morphed into phantoms of their pasts, swirling around them like a dark tide. The true test had begun, and each warlock would have to confront their deepest fears if they were to succeed. The cavern trembled as shadows danced ominously around the warlocks, each phantom a reflection of their inner turmoil. Malachar felt a rush of dread wash over him as he faced visions of his past failures, his ambitions leading to heartbreak and the estrangement of his fellow mages. But he steeled himself, remembering the stakes of their mission. Focus, he shouted, his voice echoing through the darkness. We cannot let these illusions distract us. Helena stepped forward, gripping Malachar's arm. We must confront them. They're manifestations of our doubts. Only by facing them can we move forward. As she spoke, a phantom emerged before her, a twisted version of herself, draped in shadows, whispering venomous doubts. You're a failure, Helena. Your family's legacy is one of destruction. You'll never live up to it. Helena gritted her teeth, staring down the apparition. You're wrong. I am more than my past. I choose to be a protector, not a destroyer. With a wave of her hand, she conjured a blast of light that illuminated the cavern, dispelling the shadow with a fierce resolve. Meanwhile, Thorn grappled with his own demon, a colossal figure representing the elements he struggled to control. "You're weak," it taunted. "You've never mastered your powers. They will consume you." Gritting his teeth, Thorn summoned the energy of the wind and fire, channeling it into a focused surge. "I am not weak. I am the storm." With a powerful roar, he unleashed a torrent of elemental energy that shattered the illusion, the echoes of his battle cries resonating through the cave. As each warlock faced their shadows, Ryland stood in hesitant silence. Memories of camaraderie with Malakar and Alina clashed with the guilt of betrayal. His own phantom appeared, a dark reflection that laughed at him. "You abandoned them. You're just a pawn of the League now." "No," Ryland shouted, his voice breaking. "I'm not just a pawn. I can choose my own path." Drawing upon the remnants of his former allegiance, he summoned a wave of energy that dispelled the illusion, his connection to the Warlocks rekindling within him. As the last of the phantoms faded, the guardian golem nodded in approval, its form shifting to reveal a glowing passageway deeper into the cavern. "You have proven your worth, united in your resolve. Now, seek the Heartstone. But be warned, the path ahead is fraught with danger." With a collective sigh of relief, the Warlocks pressed onward, the darkness thickening as they traversed the winding corridors. The walls pulsed with energy, whispering forgotten secrets of the universe. They could feel the magic coursing through them, binding them together, their fears now transformed into strength. Suddenly, the ground shook violently, and a rift opened before them, revealing a massive chamber bathed in an ethereal glow. At its center, the Heartstone pulsed with radiant energy, surrounded by a swirling vortex of arcane magic. But standing guard were twisted creatures, abominations formed from pure magic, their eyes glinting with malice. "We have to get to the Heartstone," Alina urged, drawing her staff. "Together." As they charged into battle, the creatures lunged, their forms shifting like smoke. The air crackled with tension as spells erupted from every direction. Malakar's energy surged to create protective barriers, while Thorn summoned elemental fury to cleave through their foes. Ryland, fighting alongside them, felt the weight of his choices lift with every spell he cast, reaffirming his place among them. In the midst of the chaos, Lyra darted between the creatures, her agility allowing her to avoid their grasp. "Cover me," she shouted, racing toward the Heartstone. "Go," Malakar commanded, unleashing a powerful spell that knocked back a group of the creatures. "We'll hold them off." As Lyra reached the Heartstone, she felt its energy resonate within her, a warmth that filled her with purpose. With a swift motion, she reached out to touch it, drawing its power into herself. But as she did, the chamber erupted in a blinding light, and the creatures recoiled, howling in rage. The Heartstone responded to her presence, amplifying the energy of the Warlocks around her. "Now," Lyra shouted, channeling the Heartstone's power into a massive wave of light. Together, with their combined magic, they unleashed a force that shattered the creatures, sending them spiraling into the void. The Heartstone pulsed stronger, its glow illuminating the chamber as they forged ahead, now armed with the power they needed to confront the true darkness looming over the galaxy. The Warlocks stood united, their spirits lifted, ready to embrace the challenges that lay ahead. They were no longer outcasts. They were protectors, and the time to reclaim their destiny had come. With the Heartstone pulsing warmly in Lyra's grasp, the Warlocks formed a protective circle, their eyes fixed on the vibrant gem that now glowed with the power of their collective magic. The echoes of their recent battle reverberated in the cavern, but their focus remained unbroken. "We need to harness this power to complete the ritual," Malakar said, urgency threading through his voice. "If the prophecy holds true, the Heartstone will bind the Devourer, but we must act quickly before the League tracks us down." Alina nodded, her fingers tingling with energy. "We need a focal point to channel the Heartstone's power, something that symbolizes our unity and purpose." "Let's draw the sigil of protection," Thorn suggested, his elemental energy swirling around him. "We've all faced our fears. We know what's at stake." As they began to inscribe the sigil on the cavern floor with their magic, the Heartstone pulsed in rhythm with their movements, filling the air with a vibrant light. The sigil flickered to life, its intricate patterns glowing brighter as they infused it with their intentions and hopes. With each stroke of magic, the ground trembled beneath them, and the cavern resonated with an ancient energy. Lyra felt a surge of confidence as she stepped forward, channeling her magic into the Heartstone. "Let's connect our energies. Our bond is our greatest strength." As the sigil completed, a radiant beam shot forth from the Heartstone, piercing through the cavern's ceiling, illuminating the darkness above. The air thickened with anticipation, and the very walls seemed to hum with magic. Suddenly, the ground shook violently, and a wave of dark energy swept through the cavern. The Warlocks exchanged alarmed glances. "It's here," Malachar shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. From the shadows emerged a colossal figure, the Devourer itself, a writhing mass of darkness and despair, its countless eyes glinting with malice. The air grew cold, and a wave of dread washed over them as the entity advanced, its presence overwhelming. "Fools!" the Devourer roared, its voice reverberating through the cavern like thunder. "You think you can bind me? I am hunger. I am chaos. We won't let you consume our world," Malachar declared, stepping forward, the sigil glowing with a fierce light behind him. "We are united, and we stand against you." With a collective effort, the Warlocks directed the Heartstone's energy toward the Devourer, the light clashing against the darkness in a breathtaking display. The sigil pulsed, forming a protective barrier that pushed against the entity's advance. The Devourer recoiled, its many eyes narrowing in fury. "You cannot hold me. I will devour your light." Elena stepped forward, her heart pounding, and raised her staff. "We have faced our fears and emerged stronger. We are not alone." With those words, the energy from the Heartstone intensified, creating a radiant beam that shot toward the Devourer. The cavern erupted with light, the sigil glowing brilliantly as the Warlocks pooled their magic into one cohesive force. "Together," Ryland shouted, feeling the warmth of unity envelop him as he joined in the chant. "We bind you." The light surged forward, encasing the Devourer in a brilliant cocoon of energy. The entity writhed and howled, its form twisting as it fought against the binding spell. But the Warlocks' combined magic held firm, each pulse of their energy reinforcing the barrier. "Don't let it break us," Thorn yelled, his voice filled with conviction. "Focus on what we fight for." As they channeled their energy, the sigil transformed into a spiral of light that encased the Devourer, pulling it inward. With each chant, they felt the weight of their intentions, the protection of their worlds, their people, and the legacy of magic itself. But just as it seemed the Devourer would be contained, a surge of dark energy erupted, threatening to shatter the spell. The cavern shook violently, and the walls began to crack. "Concentrate. We must push harder," Malachar shouted, his voice filled with urgency. "We won't let it win." With one final surge of determination, the Warlocks channeled their energy into the Heartstone, pouring their hopes, fears, and bonds into the ritual. The light flared brighter than ever, enveloping the Devourer in an all-consuming blaze. In that moment of unyielding unity, the darkness began to unravel, the Devourer's form collapsing under the weight of their combined will. The echoes of its cries faded, replaced by a harmonious resonance that filled the cavern. As the light enveloped them, the Warlocks felt their souls intertwined with the magic, a bond that transcended time and space. They had faced the darkness together, and through their unity, they had not only bound the Devourer but also redefined their own destinies. The cavern fell silent, and as the light dimmed, the Heartstone's glow became a steady beacon of hope. They had not just survived, they had emerged victorious, the promise of a new beginning shimmering on the horizon. But even in their triumph, an unsettling feeling lingered, a sense that the League would not rest easy, and that new challenges awaited them beyond the walls of the cavern. The fight for the galaxy's future was far from over. As the last echoes of the Devourer faded into the aether, the cavern began to stabilize, the air crackling with residual magic. The Heartstone pulsed softly in Lyra's hands, now a beacon of hope and a reminder of their shared struggle. The Warlocks stood in a circle, breathing heavily, the adrenaline of their victory mingling with the weight of what lay ahead. "We did it," Alina breathed, disbelief and relief flooding her voice. "We actually bound the Devourer." Malachar nodded, but a shadow of concern crossed his features. "This victory may only be temporary. The League won't overlook our actions. They'll see us as a threat." "Then we need to prepare," Ryland said, his voice steady, the weight of his betrayal now replaced by a renewed sense of purpose. "We can't just wait for them to come after us." As they gathered their thoughts, the Heartstone began to vibrate, pulsing with energy. "It's responding to the magic we just unleashed," Thorn said, intrigued. "We need to harness it before we leave this place." Together, they focused on the Heartstone, channeling their energy into it once more. The cavern illuminated with a vibrant light, and the air shimmered around them. Images of possible futures flashed before their eyes. Visions of a united galaxy, where magic flowed freely and darkness was kept at bay. But amidst those visions lurked shadows, suggesting that the League was preparing to retaliate. Suddenly, the cavern quaked, and a tremor surged through the ground. The Warlocks exchanged worried glances. "What's happening?" Lyra shouted, struggling to maintain her balance. Malachar narrowed his eyes. "The Heartstone's power is drawing the attention of something greater. We need to move, now." They rushed toward the cavern's exit, the pulsating glow of the Heartstone leading them through the winding passages. As they emerged into the open air of Zorak, a harsh wind greeted them, whipping their hair and clothes around wildly. The once familiar landscape felt more ominous than before. Outside, the sky darkened as storm clouds gathered, swirling menacingly overhead. "They're coming," Thorn warned, his elemental senses tingling with the approaching threat. "We need to find shelter and strategize." They made their way to a secluded grove at the base of a towering cliff, the Heartstone nestled safely among them. The oppressive atmosphere pressed in on them, and the tension was palpable. As they gathered around, Malachar took charge. "We need to split our focus. Some of us must strengthen the Heartstone's power to defend against the League, while others scout for potential allies. We can't fight this battle alone." "I'll help with the Heartstone," Lyra volunteered, her fingers itching to tap into its magic. "I want to ensure it's fortified." "I'll scout the surrounding areas," Ryland added, determination shining in his eyes. "There may be others who share our vision." "Then I'll go with you," Alina said, her resolve hardening. "We can look for allies among the outcast mages. There are others who face the League's oppression." Thorn nodded, glancing between them. "And I'll guard the Heartstone. We can't let it fall into the wrong hands again." As the plan took shape, Malachar felt a surge of hope. "We're stronger together, but we each have our roles to play. Let's move quickly and with purpose." They split up, each of them feeling the weight of their mission. Lyra and Thorn stayed behind, pouring their energy into the Heartstone, which pulsed rhythmically, reacting to their magic. "We need to draw out more of its potential," Thorn suggested, his elemental powers flickering as he focused on the Heartstone's glow. Meanwhile, Ryland and Alina ventured through the rugged terrain, their footsteps echoing against the cliffs. As they climbed, they discussed their next steps, their minds racing with possibilities. "We need to find the mages who were expelled, or those who felt the League's wrath," Ryland said. "They're more likely to join us in our fight. And we'll need to show them that we're not just outcasts," Alina added. "We're a force for good, and together, we can stand against the darkness." As they crested a ridge, the wind howled around them, and they spotted distant figures gathered in a clearing, a ragtag group of mages who looked as if they had faced their own battles. Ryland's heart raced. There, we might find our allies there. But as they approached, a familiar figure stepped forward. Counselor Vex, flanked by a contingent of League enforcers. The air grew thick with tension. "You're too late," Vex called out, a smirk playing at the corners of his lips. "Your little rebellion ends here." With hearts pounding, Ryland and Alina prepared to confront the very embodiment of the threat they had just fought against. The reckoning was upon them, and the time for unity had come. As Ryland and Alina stood on the ridge, facing Counselor Vex and his League enforcers, the atmosphere crackled with tension. The League's forces were a stark reminder of the challenges they had faced, but now they stood united with purpose. "Ryland," Vex shouted, his voice dripping with disdain. "You've aligned yourself with traitors and outcasts. You think they can save you? You're a fool to turn your back on the League." Alina stepped forward, her eyes blazing. "We're not turning our backs. We're forging a new path. The League's complacency is what endangers the galaxy." Vex's expression hardened, and he raised his hand. "Arrest them. Bring them before the council. We will make an example of these warlocks." At his command, the enforcers advanced, weapons drawn. But Ryland felt a surge of energy from the Heartstone, pulsing through him. "No," he shouted, raising his hands. "We won't go quietly. We have a purpose now, and we will fight for it." The two sides clashed. Ryland and Alina unleashed their magic, channeling the power of the Heartstone as it pulsed with vibrant energy. A brilliant wave erupted from them, colliding with the enforcers and sending several staggering back. "Lyra, Thorn," Ryland called out, knowing they needed their allies to hold the line. From the grove, Thorn emerged, his elemental power surging as he conjured barriers of wind and fire to protect them. "Let's show them what we've become," Thorn roared, joining the fray, the Heartstone's glow illuminating the battlefield. As the two groups collided, the sounds of spells and magic echoed through the air. The outcast mages, hearing the commotion, began to emerge from the shadows, drawn by the conflict. They had watched from a distance, hesitant, but now they saw the courage of Ryland and Alina, and it ignited something within them. "We stand with you," one of the mages shouted, stepping forward, their own magic crackling in the air. "We will not be silenced." With renewed vigor, the group of outcasts joined the fight, casting spells that filled the air with vibrant colors. Together, they formed a wall of magic that repelled the League's enforcers, pushing them back with every surge of energy. "Keep fighting," Ryland shouted, rallying his newfound allies. "We can't let them divide us." The battle raged on, and the Heartstone's power surged through the Warlocks and their allies. The sigil of protection they had created earlier began to glow once more, binding their energies together, amplifying their strength. The darkness that Vex embodied started to falter as light surged forth, pushing back against the League. "Retreat," Vex shouted, his confidence wavering as he saw his forces being overwhelmed. But Ryland felt a spark of determination ignite within him. "No, this isn't over." With a final, unified effort, they unleashed a wave of light that washed over the battlefield. The League's enforcers, caught off guard, were thrown back, their formations disrupted as the magic surged forward. Vex stumbled, realizing he had underestimated the power of unity. As the dust began to settle, the Warlocks and their allies stood strong, breathing heavily but resolute. The Heartstone's light enveloped them, a symbol of hope and strength. "This is just the beginning," Malachar said, stepping forward, his voice steady. "We are more than outcasts. We are guardians of this galaxy. Together, we will create a future where magic is embraced, not feared." Ryland nodded, looking at his friends and newfound allies. "We've fought too hard to turn back now. We need to show the League that we will not be silenced or divided." Vex, realizing the tide had turned, raised his hands in surrender. "You may have won this battle, but the League will not be easily defeated. We will not forget this." With a fierce glare, Ryland stepped forward, And we will not forget what we stand for. We will build a coalition of magic users who stand against your tyranny." As Vex and the remaining enforcers retreated, the Warlocks and their allies gathered, feeling the warmth of the Heartstone's glow surrounding them. They had forged a new path, united against the darkness that threatened their worlds. Together, they turned to the horizon, where the first rays of dawn broke through the clouds. The battle was not the end. It was a new beginning. With the Heartstone in their midst and a shared purpose igniting their spirits, they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The Warlocks had been dismissed from the Arcane League, but now they stood as a formidable force, determined to reshape the galaxy's destiny. Together, they would protect their magic and their home, united in hope and resilience, ready to fight for a brighter future.